Hi everyone, Happy New Year to you. Today I am bringing you a full face tutorial on this look that I'm wearing here, and it is what I was wearing in my recent BoxyLuxe unboxing video. Several of you requested that look, and the funny story is that day I had put on my cozy sweater and pulled out a bunch of ColourPop shadow palettes, and I was just having fun dipping between them, thinking to myself, ooh, I hope I don't have to recreate this look because I'm not sure that I can, but I have attempted to recreate that look as I wore it that day, or as close as I can remember. Now, I did use 3 different ColourPop shadow palettes in this look, but don't despair. Along the way, I try to give you a good color description of the shadows I'm using so you can look through your collection and find similar shades. If you have the Lorac Pro 4 palette, there are several shadows in here that I think would work very well and would give you a very similar look. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with this tutorial. So to start off, I'm going to use the Thrive Cosmetics 360 Eye Lift Primer and put this on the lids, blend it in. I am really enjoying this, and it does keep my shadow in place all day. While that sits, I'm going to actually apply a primer, and I don't often use foundation primers, but this is a sample from Milk, and it is their grip primer, their Hydro Grip Primer, and I am so shocked that I really like this. So I did 2 little pumps of that, and I like to let this sit on the skin for just a little bit. I have already applied moisturizer. I don't know that this really adds a ton of moisture to the skin, but it does have that grip, and I do feel like it helps the makeup just look better on the skin, and it does provide a little extra lasting power, so that's a good thing. While that's soaking in, I'm going to put on a little of my Buxom White Russian gloss. Get the lips moisturized and a little bit plumper. The primer has sunk in nicely, and you can still feel it a little bit on the skin, but it's not nearly as tacky as when it was first applied. So now I'm going to go in with foundation, and I've really been enjoying this drugstore combo. So this is the NYX Bear With Me. It's just a tinted skin veil, and I have the shade Beige Camel, which is a little too deep for me. So I did a trick my best friend had told me she was loving, and that was adding in the Hard Candy Glamouflage Full Coverage Foundation. She's been mixing this with all different kinds of foundations and loving it. And I just hadn't really gotten in the groove with this foundation yet, and loved this combination. And this shade is Vanilla 1502. So the combination of those two, the NYX one is a little bit more sheer. The Glamouflage, it's definitely more full coverage and longer wearing. So the combination of the two, I've really been enjoying. I'm going to use this sponge, and this was one from Amazon. And again, a really good sponge if you don't want to spend the money on a beauty blender, or even some of the other drugstore brands. Their sponges are expensive. I got 5 of these sponges for around $10, and I have been really impressed so far. So they expand. I'm using it damp, so you put it underwater, and these expand very quickly and are a real soft texture, very smooth. I like using the sponge with some fuller coverage foundations, or when I want more of a natural finish. So now I'm going to let that foundation just kind of soak into the skin and dry down a little bit, because if I were to powder right now, I feel like it just is going to grab too much powder. So I like to let it just sit and do its thing and work on the eyes now. So as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm going to be using a couple of ColourPop shadows and palettes. Don't worry, I'll explain the colors along the way so you know what to look for in your collection if you don't have these palettes. So in this palette, this is the Sweet Nothings palette. I'm going to be using just this cream shade right here. It's called Out of Luck. And I'm going to use the Morphe M208. I used to use this all the time. And my Sigma brush, though, that I have switched to is currently dirty. So as part of the new year, I've got a lot of brush cleaning and cleaning out to be doing. So for the crease, I'm going to go into this really new ColourPop palette. It's called Bare Necessities, and it is a really pretty palette, much more cooler toned than many of their others. So I'm going to go in with this shade right here, which is called All For You, and this is a muted, I would say very cool tone plum shade, but it is a little lighter in the color spectrum. So putting that all through the crease, and I'm using the Morphe M504 and just working that back and forth and building up slightly. This is going to be our transition shade. And you'll notice I'm doing something a lot more cooler toned than I normally do, because when I did this look for that previous video, I was just really feeling kind of those lavender cool tones. So that's what we're doing today. Okay, and then to deepen the crease, I'm going to go into the Hello, You Had Me at Hello palette from ColourPop. And you see this mid-tone lavender lilac, more lilac shade. Let me show you. It has just a hint of some warmth to it, but not much, still very purple. And I'm going to use the Morphe M433 for that one. And I'm going to use this just to further deepen the crease and the outer corner. And just tapping my brush in the shadow and just placing, you can see I'm just dabbing that shadow first and then buffing it out. And by using colors that are very similar in tone, but just slightly darker than the one previously, it helps make blending much easier. So if you're struggling with blending, you might want to add an extra shadow to your look. I know people ask me, do I really need to use all of those shadows? And you don't, but it certainly makes your look more blended and gives a little more depth to the overall finished look. Going back to the Sweet Nothings palette, now I'm going to use a combination of these two shades. This one looks black, but it's really not. It's a very dark, cool tone plum. So that one's called Mousse, and then the one next to it, I think it's Tulle. I don't know, it's spelled really weird, but I think that's what they meant. I'm going to use the MAC 239, and I'm just pressing my brush in this lighter plum shade and then just tapping it into Mousse. And I am now going to place this deepest part, place this right in the lash line, and I'm just going to kind of pat that on. We'll blend it in a minute, but I'm just going to darken this very outer corner. I'm really not going to bring much of this through the crease because I don't want this look to be too dark and dramatic. Again, just placing the brush right into the roots of the lashes, and then going up just slightly towards the crease and up towards the brow, but stopping below the crease. And then I'm going to go in with this tiny little M506, and I'm going to use just a little bit of the lighter plum shade and just blend right here in the outer corner. For the lid, the star of the show is this Stila shimmering eyeshadow, and it is in the color Cloud. It is a really beautiful silver lilac color, and the shimmering eyeshadows don't have that chunky glitter that their glitter eyeshadows have. So these are actually my preference. These are a liquid So, but they do dry down and stay very well. But you wanna, I like to blend one eye at a time. So just going to tap that onto my lid. And then I'm just going to lightly tap the edge of that. And don't worry, we're going to add a little shadow on top just to add a little extra depth there. But isn't that pretty? Such a pretty shade. It has a little bit of some gold reflex as the light hits it. Going back to the Sweet Nothings palette, now I'm going to use a little bit of this shade. It's called Cannelle, I don't know. And it is a beautiful silver lavender, and I'm just going to tap this on. And again, it's just going to kind of fill in any of the blank spaces left by that shimmering eyeshadow. And if you don't have that eyeshadow, that shimmering eyeshadow, you could just go in with this, and it's going to look almost just as beautiful. And then, because I like to have a little more blend between the shimmer on the lid and the outer corner, I'm going to go in now with this shade, which is called Upon a Star. And this reminds me of Star Violet from MAC. So I'm going to just tap that right where those colors meet. And then go back with just a little more of this light plum shade on the M506 and just blend those outer corner shades together. I'll take my M504 through top part of the crease just one more time. On the lower lash line, I'm going to use Rockstar from Urban Decay and just use a little bit of this in the outer third. And then I'm going to take an angled brush and a little bit more of this plum shade, the lighter of the two, and go right over the top of that. And then I'm going to give myself a little bit of a guideline, making sure to connect it with the outer corner shadows, because I am going to use a little bit of liquid liner today. And I do have a liner video coming up, and so don't worry, I have help with liquid liner coming. On the upper lash line, I'm going to use the Hank and Henry Blickety Black liquid liner and just do a super thin line right here, and then just a tiny little bit of a flick here in the outer corner. And then right here in the outer corner, I'm just going to soften that a little bit with some shadows. So I'm going over the top of it with a combination of our two darker shades on this angled brush. Just really touching the top part of that shadow, or of the liner, and just softens it so it's not quite as harsh of a line. And then I'll take a little bit of just the lighter color and press that right here into the front part of the liner. You can see it just mutes it down just a little bit, so it's a little bit softer. After cleaning up under the eyes, I'm going to go in with concealer, and I'm using my favorite combination, the Revlon Candid and the Too Faced Multi-Use Sculpting. This is the shade Swan, and this is Creme Brulee. And it's real important when you're wearing purple or blue or cooler tone shadows, especially. It's going to bring out any darkness under your eyes, so you really want to make sure you do a good job of concealing your dark circles. And then I felt like I still, you can still see it on this eye, I have a little more darkness coming through, so I'm going to just tap a little bit of color corrector right over that dark area. For powder, I've been testing out this one from Jouer Cosmetics, and it is the Soft Focused Hydrate and Set Powder. and definitely has hydrating benefits to it. So if you're oily, this is not the powder for you. But I've been enjoying it on my winter skin, and I have the shade Fair, Fair Pale, and it really doesn't add coverage, but I do feel like initially, at least, it provides some blurring and sets the skin without it looking powdery. And I'm just using the Sedona Lace 376 for this. Let's add a little shape to the face. I'm going to use the Kevyn Aucoin Sculpting Medium shade and the F05 from Sigma. Contour does such amazing things for the face. Gives me cheekbones. And then I'm going to use this Lorac contour brush and a little bit of the Sculpting Light shade and just sculpt my nose a little bit. And actually, I think I can handle a little bit of the medium shade on there as well. For blush, I'm going to use this kind of ombre blush that's in the Kevyn Aucoin palette. It's called Venice. And I'm going to keep my brush more in the center part. And you can tell it's a very cool tone pink, which is what I want to pair with the cooler tones on the eyes. You could do a warm blush, but I think that this kind of helps everything just seem like it works together. And I do have a video planned of how to coordinate eyeshadows with your blush and lip color. So stay tuned for that. And for highlighter, I'm going to use this one. It's a glazed donut from Ofra. Doesn't that just sound delicious? I don't know. I'm going to use the MAC fan brush, the 140 fan brush, to apply that. Just the tops of the cheeks. And then under the eye, after just tapping in kind of any residual creasing or residual concealer that's there, I'm going to just take this brush. It doesn't have any new powder on it, but I just like to lightly put this underneath. I've been using the Kat Von D brightening powder occasionally, so I'm just using what's left on this brush. For inner corner highlight, I'm going to go into the You Had Me at Hello palette and use this shade right here, which is called The Knot, and it is a little bit cooler leaning champagne color, and I'm using a brand new E30 from Sigma. I have had my other E30 for almost 10 years and I was pleasantly surprised at actually they have really improved the quality of the handle and the weightiness of the brush since their early days, but the brush is just as good. One step before adding mascara, and that's brows. Boy, do brows make a difference. So let's add the frame to our eyeshadow look here. I'm using the IT Cosmetics Brow Power Full pencil, and then I'm using the Instant Brow Fix from Thrive, and this is the shade Audrey. It's time to curl the lashes. And then add mascara, and I'm using the Origins Underwear for Lashes IT Cosmetics Superhero Mascara. And I'm going to use the Hank and Henry mascara on the lower lashes. It's kind of a water resistant formula, but I find it doesn't smudge, so I really like that. before finishing off with lips, I'm gonna add just a little hint of some smudgy smokiness on the lower lash line. So I'm going back to that first shade we used in the crease, which is All For You, and I'm using the Sigma E47. And I like this brush because it's long and soft, so I can tuck it right under my lashes and do a real soft little bit of shadow under there. Around the edge of the lips, I already used the MAC Soft Ochre Paint Pot, and now for liner, I'm using the Sephora Rouge Gel Liner in Bellflower. And this is a very cool lilac color. Now those lip liners are really soft, so that's why I use that MAC Soft Ochre Paint Pot around the edge. And now I'm just gonna tap that color onto the lips a little bit. And then I'm gonna add my favorite gloss. You all know this combination, the Huda Lip Strobe in Angelic. All right, so here is our finished look. And as I said in the beginning, even if you don't have these palettes, I am sure you have these colors or similar ones in your collection. So I hope that you give this look a try. Thank you as always so much for watching. Be sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any other videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye.